absolutely insane. This is the result. I mean, this is one of the reasons why I rail against biblical views of ethics on a regular basis. It's because this book includes the best thinking of a bunch of Iron and Bronze Age people who thought it was okay to kill unruly children and to own slaves and to treat people as property and to go in and rape and pillage. This is the best thinking they could come up to. We have improved upon that. We have built upon what's common in the past so that we have a better understanding. The fact that we're so good at it, that it's almost intuitive to know, ooh, what he did is wrong, and we don't have to sit there and think about it, is a testament to how far we've come. Nothing about this is arbitrary. It's not just a, hey, I feel like today I'll give rights to everybody.
Well, I mean, it kind of, well, another thing, it would be like, most people want to reduce the amount of suffering in the world. That's like another one that's basically, I mean, arbitrarily chosen. Why?
What makes you think that this? What makes you think that's arbitrary? I would like to. No. Hang on.
Limit suffering. Why not increase suffering?
Because
or keep suffering the same.
Because okay, God, this is so painful. Would you like to suffer more or less?
Less.
There you go. Was that arbitrary or was it based on your preference?
No, that's just based on I'm a mammal and I try to avoid suffering, or like I'm an animal basically.
Okay.
You just answered your own question. You just said the exact same thing that we've been saying.
Well, but why would it be, I mean, I try to avoid suffering. Why not? Why would I want to stop others from suffering? I mean,
okay,
because we're all fundamentally the same.
Because we're all very, very similar. In much the same way that you'd like to suffer less, I'd like to suffer less. And we've gotten to this point where you and I can work together to see that we suffer less. It is in your interest. It is in your best interest to assist us in ensuring that everybody suffers less. Because guess what? Here's the super thing. You're a part of everybody. You're a part of that set. You're not off by yourself saying, me versus the world, I want to suffer less, screw those people. That doesn't work. We know it doesn't work.
Okay.
Yeah, we tried it over the millennia.
Thanks a lot. I appreciate the call, Ryan.
Yeah.
Great. I don't know if we have other callers waiting yet or not. The lines are full. Jen's got stuff. I don't know if you got more to go to or not.
No, keep going. Keep going.
All right, we've got, is it Gregory and Eugene?
Yeah.
How are you, Gregory?
Somewhere between fairly spiffy and moderately neato.
I'll go with spiffy.
Okay. All right, what do you got for us?
Anyway, I've got a notion for what God might be if it exists. And first of all, let me preface this with saying I have zero stake emotionally or intellectually on whether or not you guys agree with it. I just thought I'd throw an idea on the table.
Okay.
So you're trying to define God?
Yeah. Sure.
Okay. All right.
If God exists, I would consider it a synonym for the phenomenon of human creativity. Because that's basically what we attribute to everything we've ever done, individually or collectively, for good or ill. We consider it an act of God. As creative beings, we still don't understand what exactly our creativity is or where it comes from. We can see the fruits of our ideas, whether it be coming together to build a radio antenna or a cannon, but as far as where those ideas come from, we still haven't figured that out yet. My basic understanding is that
I want to jump in.
Yeah, go ahead.
My basic understanding is that we haven't exactly figured out what causes consciousness or thinking, or what the exact definition is, just that we can do it.
Well, there's you can make a God of the gaps argument there that we don't know X, therefore there must be God. But I wanted to respond to your definition directly, and it seems to me, if I were going to define God, I would define it as sort of the sum total of our human ignorance. I would plane it on ignorance. It's like when you worship God, you're saying, well, I don't know how this is going to happen, but I want this outcome, or it's an act of God. The tsunami or the hurricane, whatever, is an act of God, and I don't know what caused it. And You even kind of touched on that at some point with your creativity. It's like we don't know how the creativity happens. So anyway, so that would be my counter proposal to you.
I'm glad that you're not particularly invested in what we happen to think about that definition, because while there are things about it that I like, in the sense that you're trying to put a label on what, by and large, most people mean at a different level when they're talking about God. I prefer Don's definition, the sum total of human ignorance. I think is about the absolute best possible definition when you're talking about things at this kind of meta level. But the idea that God is human creativity, and like I said, I'm glad you don't have much invested in this, because I'm just going to smack that down, is no different for me than saying God is this coffee cup. This coffee cup already has characteristics and a name and a label associated with it, and so does creativity. It has characteristics and it has a label, a number of labels, depending on languages. And the God label has to have, in my view, something in addition, something that is specific to it. It's not the rose by any other name thing. I want to call a rose Sphiligman. Okay, why? What does Sphiligman mean? Well, it means a rose. Well, then why don't you just use the word rose? I mean, and I'm not talking to you, obviously, but if we're talking about creativity, then we should use the word creativity. And if somebody's using God as a substitute for the word creativity, it seems to me that they're implying some additional characteristics that are perhaps unstated. That the best you could maybe do is say that they're using it as God equals creativity plus.
Well, one statement I've heard multiple times from atheists, particularly Dick Dawkins, is that God can be seen as an imaginary friend, which I can totally agree with. And just because it's imaginary doesn't completely invalidate the concept, just makes it impractical for any external need of worship or obedience. And I think that's basically what God is, humanity's collective imaginary friend that we keep reinventing because our imagination keeps growing.
Okay.
Yeah, as long as everybody's clear it's contingent on the human imagination, then I'm happy.
But yeah, I don't see any reason to coddle someone with an imaginary friend, or show deference to their imaginary friend when it comes time for legislation or public events, and I certainly am not bound. I'm certainly not bound by what they think their imaginary friend wants me to do.
Yeah, and I think since most human beings are clearly creative beings, and in an immediate sense we're creative beings because most of us at some point figure out how our parents made us. It's very easy to take that and apply it to everything else and say, okay, if humans are created by other humans, then there's probably something that created the first humans. And there's probably something that created everything else, and then you can make the leap to an ultimate creator. But
and that would be a huge mistake.
You can go another direction on that. You can look around and say, well, are there uncreative things? For example, I don't know, a rock. Rocks don't strike me as very creative. If there are uncreative things, then it tends to reason that there could be things that are uncreative. For all I know, rocks and sand and dirt have probably just always been here. And maybe that's the way it is with the universe. Maybe the universe has just always been here without a creator, without a need for a creator. It's just a lot easier to imagine that the universe had a creator because I'm a creative being.
Yes, it's anthropomorphizing.
Yeah.
It seems like you're saying creation is creativity is a mystery, and the universe is a mystery. Therefore, they must have something to do with each other.
Well, we live.
Most people leap at.
We live.
I find that unfortunate.
We live our daily lives relying heavily on inference and induction. We expect the world to be pretty much the same today as it was yesterday. We're so good at it. I mean, here's a really good example for anybody who's driven a car for any length of time. I'm 40 now, so I've been driving for, 30 years or so. But when you're driving, especially if you're driving a route you've known before, you're not thinking about I mean, your brain is working. Your brain it knows what your feet are doing, where your hands are on the steering wheel. It's surveying your speed, the speed of the cars around you. It's being observant for changes in speed, lights, signals, warnings, etc. And yet you can be thinking about something else entirely different, having a conversation with somebody in the car. And by and large, this isn't going to be a problem.